You cannot be generous when you're lazy. For many of us here, when was the last time you helped somebody? When was the last time somebody came to you and says, I have this problem, or somebody who has a problem and you help them? Many times we couldn't, because we hadn't gotten enough to eat our own bread and have some left to give to anybody. But God encourages us to eat our own bread, but to create more than our own bread, so we can solve other people's problem. We have to have a mind to work. The mindset of work is a Christian mindset. Let's hear what Jesus himself had to say about that in Matthew chapter 25, verse 26 to 28. This is the verdict he gave after he had spoken about the parable of the sower and the one who did not use his gift well and hid his gift. This is what Jesus says, or this is what the Lord of that servant says, which represents God's view on how to deal with this situation. It says, this is the guy who says, I had 1 talent and I hid it and I didn't use it. But his Lord answered and said to him, you wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. Let me tell you this. If Jesus was the president of this country, most of us would leave. If Jesus was your boss, most of you will quit your job. Because, we think Jesus' mindset is just give. No, that's not Jesus' mindset. Jesus' mindset, if you read the Bible, Jesus' mindset is very severe. He goes to a tree that is not bearing fruit. He says, you are cursed. He talks about a fig tree that is not bearing fruit. He says, cut it down. He talks about a servant who doesn't multiply his talent. He says, take it from him. If Jesus was your boss, would you survive? Gentle Jesus, meek and mild. Look upon the little child. But he says, take his from him and give it to the one who had 10. Now, in our mindset, the Ghanaian mind says, look at the one who has 10 and take from him and give to the one who has 1. It's opposite Jesus. Jesus says, take from the lazy man and give it to the hardworking person. That's a totally different mindset. It's not an African mindset at all. So what do we get from Jesus? That God does not reward laziness. God does not reward laziness. He expects us to use the talents he has given us to create opportunities in this world. He will not reward laziness. Secondly, that God does not honor mindlessness. Now, I was going to use another word instead of mindlessness, which is more apt and clearer. But, I'm preaching, so I have to use mindlessness, which is a nicer word. God does not honor mindlessness. God expects us to think and use our brains to solve the problems around us. If you don't think, you don't get sympathy from him. God does not bless stinginess. Stinginess. God expects us to work so that we can be a blessing. That's what the master said. He said, at least you should have invested it and generated some profit. So I will have something when I come back. The man says, well, I thought you were wicked and I really, thought that you reap where you have not sown. He has sown, and he must reap. The master has given you talent. He has sown into your life. You are the one who is stingy. You are not multiplying. God does not bless stinginess, and God does not promote wickedness. It is wicked to have talent and not use it. And it is wicked to be dishonest. It is wicked to dissipate the value of what has been entrusted to you. Jesus has a very severe approach to work. If Jesus was your boss, and you went to office and you were reading the Bible, and you say, Jesus, but I'm reading your word. He would say, thank you for reading my word. But I didn't employ you here to read my word. There is a time to read my word, and there's a time to work for me. And this is a good time to work for me and not just read my word. I know a lot of you Christians believe that it's a sign of spirituality to go to office with the Bible in your desk and read it during office times. It's good to go to the office with the Bible. You can read it before work starts, maybe 6:30 in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning, depending on your working hours. You can read it during break time, and you can read it after work. In between, when a customer is waiting on you, that's not the time to read Isaiah 53. If Jesus was your boss, he will fire you. If Jesus was your boss and you went to work late over and over again, he will sack you. You say, oh, Jesus, yeah, he will sack you. Yes, that's Jesus. If Jesus was your boss and he gave you an assignment and a deadline and you didn't complete it, he'll give you first warning and second warning and fire you. In his name. Just fire you. You can go about and say, my Lord, why hast thou forsaken me? He will still fire you. That's the mindset of the early church. The early church was a very disciplined church. It was a place of hard work, of commitment, of honesty, of truthfulness. Can you imagine what will happen if the Christians in Ghana began to live by the Bible? Not just in our prayer meetings, but in our work ethic. And Christians have a mind to work. And we go to work and we don't steal. And we work for people and we don't steal from them. And when we're given assignments, we execute them. And when we have a problem, we work at it until we get a solution. So if you have to work overtime, you stay in the night and solve the problem like Nehemiah did. Nehemiah says we're working at night, working in the day. We didn't even change our clothes. Yes, they were smelling. But they solved the problem. Yes, they had body odor. But they solved the problem. And afterwards, they could go and wash. Because when you have a crisis, it is an emergency time. It's not a time to just take life easily. Whatever work you do, even if you're a preacher, you work hard to preach. You think preaching is easy? Try it once. You speak 10 minutes and your words will finish. And you say, I don't know what else to say. Yeah, you think it's easy. I start sometimes planning my messages a year ahead of time. A year ahead. I know what I'm going to preach next year. I know the messages I'm going to preach. I know what I'm preaching next week. I start working on it weeks ahead. And then in the week I'm preaching, from Tuesday, I start preparing my message. You come and look at my notes. I have about 11 pages of written notes, full of research. is hard work. You don't say, oh, as for Pastor, God uses him. I work. I work. If I came here on Sunday and I hadn't worked, God will have nothing to use. He will only use my ignorance. And that will be harmful to you. So I got to work. If you're a singer, you got to work. Whatever you do, it takes hard work. Hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of labor until you produce results. If we have that mindset, Ghana's problems will be solved overnight, because our problems are very tiny. First, he who steals must not steal.